Welcome back to another reaction to Easygoing Territory Defense of the Optimistic Lord, episode 3. Now, I still am somewhat hopeful this is going to turn into a little bit of a more interesting show. It does not seem like it. But I, still have my little copium. We had a little fight last episode. We defended this little village. And we will see how it starts now. We just instantly made a house. We will see. Opening. Not opening. This is...
バン様の生産系魔術は4元素魔術よりもよほど漁師様に向いてますね。
That is true. That is true.
面白い魔術だけど、やっぱり領民を守れる攻撃魔術が一番。
Questionable. So we don't really know how these spells work. Elemental magic, sure, you can use against enemies far more effectively. Depending on the other magics, we will have to see. Because you have production magic, you could make a bunch of crossbows as example. So you can equip the citizenship and you could have more warriors or more fighters than you would normally have as example. You could also get heavy machinery going, like a ballista, trebuchet, catapult. All of these are very useful in fights, or as well defensively. Again, it's all about how you use it. You may not be able to defeat enemies alone, but you may be able to tip the scales in your favor. Far more than one person with offensive magic.
いいと思うよ。そんな漁師の方が住む人は安心でしょ。
そんなことありません。僕ならジャルパ様の町よりもバン様の町に住みたいと思います。
I mean, probably mostly because you like him.
二人とも身内びきしすぎだから。
確かに。
Exactly.
戦乱の時ならばバン様の言う通りでしょう。しかし領民が求めるのは暮らしを良くしてくれる領主なのです。
Partially, it's for most of the citizenship, it doesn't really matter how strong you are in a war scenario, as long as you are strong enough to defend the town. That is the most important part. It doesn't really matter to advance and take more territory, be offensive. It's all about defensive. As long as the town is fine, it doesn't really matter how strong you are. And then it is more important to, make the life of these people better in one way or another. Be it more production, be it better housing, be it whatever you can think of, better streets. All of that, what is improving the life of citizenship in a day-to-day basis is far better than being offensively gifted.
そういう意味ではバン様ほど民の目線に立てる方はいないでしょう。
エスパーダ殿の言う通りです。まさか家までお作りになられるとは。
As example, Descendants of a Bookworm. This is a light spoiler. So what she was making as a side project, she was making water pumps that you could just put on a well and you could use it to pump water up. How it really works, I don't know. I believe I looked at it. It's more or less pressure. It's always pressure. It's low pressure, I believe, because you pump out the air from the closed pump system, which then tries to, pull air from the bottom but because there's water, the water gets pulled up, and this is how you can transfer water from below, or from the well to the top. You don't have to use the bucket anymore. You don't have to lower it, bring it back up. And she was doing that, which is going to help the citizenship. If you made something similar to here, there are a lot of examples you could probably think of that are not apparent right now. But that is going to help everyone a lot more than you being able to use fire.
バン様の力は一般的な生産系魔術をはるかに超越しています。
That is also a part that normally production magic is not that useful because you can't produce that much because of mana, I assume. But he's able to make a house, which I assume most production magician cannot do. One way or another. Maybe because he's isekai, maybe it's because he's a noble and he's training that area. Maybe people with production magic are like, this is garbage, I'm not going to use it, and that is why it never really got better. I do not like the pillars on the balcony. Why is the left one they look like they are a little bit differently placed.
木材を持ってきてくれたら D やオルトさんたちの家も建ててあげるよ。
アブ、ロー、木材を集めるぞ。急げ。はあ、騎士どもに負けるなよ。
I don't know. Housing for them. For them. I was like housing for the population, which on one hand would make sense because their houses are not in good shape. However, it would also remove potential jobs that could be done, like carpentry. Now, it could just be like that he's doing this, to as an example to, more or less start the economy up again, so people don't have to worry about the housing. Carpenters are then to reinforce the housing, to maintain the housing. However, what he means is that he can make housing for them, because the whole reason he made this little villa is because he doesn't want to sleep outside anymore. It's not very comfortable. All the knights are most likely in the same vein, or the adventurers. They are like, we don't want to sleep outside on the ground anymore with all the bugs. We want some kind of housing. Now they're getting it. Question is, do we get a house for every, knight, or do we get like a barracks?
すごいやる気だな。
材料さえ用意すれば。
Exactly. This also would make sense, again, to just jumpstart the village some more. Also, you get, people will like you a lot more. You can also, if you do this, you could rebuild the village. You could just trash everything and then rebuild the village in a more efficient manner. Potentially. Depends if you want to do that. But yeah, everyone gets a new nice house. Then carpenters can come in, make new housing, can maintain housing. It doesn't necessarily mean that that Van is going to do this all the time. He's called Van, right? The problem is there's a story that also has the main character called Van, and it's always like, I always remember that story instead of this one.
わしらにも家を建ててもらえるんでしょうか。我が家も雨風が吹き込んで。
私の家は床が抜けてしまって。
玄関の扉が朽ちてなくなりました。
一気に作業するのはさすがに疲れそうだ。けど確かに彼らの家はひどい。よし、まずは村の生活を。
Again, makes all sense. Now, how is it going to be done in the story? If it's somewhat, interesting story, this would take like a week, maybe two. He's going to do it in a day because we can't have like a little bit of time. I would also prioritize the villagers' housing before the guards' housing, just because they are used to sleeping outside.
劇的に大改造しよう。わかりました。まるっと皆さんの家を新築しましょう。
やったぞ、夢のマイホームだ。木材は我らが用意いたしますぞ。
僕の生産系魔術で村のみんなが喜んでくれるならやるしかない。
And naturally, he should be unable to. Again, depending on how you want to do it. If he does it all in one day, he is too OP. If it takes a little bit of time, it's like, okay, he's able to do it. He doesn't have unlimited mana, so we have ways to grow. Wonderful renovation of an impoverished frontier that has an impeccable palisade for some reason.
なんということでしょう。老朽化が進み、あんなにも住みにくかった家が
綺麗な新築の家に生まれ変わりました。
本当に見事ですな。バン様の魔力量の多さにも驚きましたが、こんな風に邸宅を建てる知識にも脱帽ですぞ。
これは方角設計といって、
基本は4軒を1組にし、
You know, people. These people are not stupid. The grid systems are systems that everyone knows about, everyone used. The problem is in most older cities, which they are grown more natural, have a natural grow pattern. Because, hey, you make a grid system, this works fine. This works fine, awesome. Now you get one more house. It's like you get a big house, like the plaza or the Lord's Manor. Now it doesn't really fit into the grid system. It slowly but surely becomes more natural. You make pathways where they fit instead of really planning them. Especially if you don't have anyone really paying attention to the system. And if, in this case, let's say 100 new people come in, they all build their own housing, they are not going to listen to what you want. They're going to build wherever they please. That is why, especially European cities are not as strict in this pattern.
大きめの通りが格子状になるように配置している。村人たちの家は差が出ないように画一的な作りにした。
I do not like that we did this in a day. It just is. I don't know why there's always the need to make someone broken OP. It's not that they do, hey, this character is very strong, he's, more or less overpowered. Now, it's never enough. It always has to be, oh, they are like gods. As example, Mushoku Tensei, Rudy, he's good at magic. He's very adept at magic. He's like advanced, whatever magic. And it's like, okay, he's good at magic. He's very good at magic. He's better than like 80% or 60% of people. Cool. But he's not God. He doesn't have the highest level of magic. He doesn't have the highest amount of mana. Also we get to grow up with him some more. Why not go this way? Why not be like, we are building this city, but it takes 2 weeks. He can make 3 or let's say 5 houses a day. A good number. But this would still make him okay. He is not godlike. We can still grow. He can still become better. In a year or so, he can maybe make 10 houses a day. you know, we have a little bit of a growth we can go through. Instead of being like, yeah, you can make a whole village in a day.
今はこれで十分だけど、いつかいい石材がいっぱい手に入ったら、それぞれの家
What is? But once we've established, eventually obtained lots of stone, he makes them new. There's a lot of stone being used here. What do you mean? You have a chimney, that is stone. You have the bottom layer, that is stone. This house, even in the front, looks like it has a stone wall. So you do have enough stone. You just gave everyone a little bit of stone.
石材がいっぱい手に入ったら、それぞれの家庭に合う家屋に建て直そう。村人たちからはものすごく感謝された。さらに
And a bath, okay. Bathing scene?
漁師の館の隣に簡単な浴場を作ってみた。
なんということでしょう。
こんなところにお風呂が。嬉しいわ。
Interesting. All the women are like, oh, yay.
自分がお風呂に入りたかっただけだけど、喜んでもらえてよかった。
Naturally, you know, you are noble. You need an attendant in the bath. The maid needs to clean you, right?
お風呂の作りは簡単で、プルリエルに水の魔術で浴槽に水を張ってもらって、カムシンに焚き火でお湯を沸かしてもらった。要するに五右衛門風呂だ。
Again, this is a far better idea for the story. He went with a simple design for the bath. Uriel used her water magic to fill it with water. Hey, so he is not the one that does everything. I mean, he doesn't have the elemental magic. And then comes in, heats it with charcoal fire. It's like, okay, you do this part, the other ones do the rest, because you can't do everything. I would have liked a little bit less of, oh, he has unlimited mana idea. He's not even bothered. It would be something different if he fell asleep, similar to Slime, where, you know, in Slime, you can name someone else, give him a name, and they get a power up, depending on how strong you are, I believe. But for that, they take some of your mana. So he was just naming people, and he named too many, so that his mana got drained, and he fell more or less in a deep sleep. Something similar would have been nice here, where he is like, at least he overextended, and he more or less collapsed because he used far too much mana in one go. But he seems
で
fine.
お湯を沸かしてもらった。要するに五右衛門風呂だ。
ではバン様、私と一緒に入りましょ
I do agree.
う。私も入
I am not saying no.
ります。
いや、僕はもう立派な大人だから。
Nah. You're like 9.
そうですね。あー、いいお湯ですね。まさか私たちや村人にまでこんな贅沢をさせてくれるなんて。バン様はそういうお方なのです。そうね。驚かされてばかりだわ。貴族にしては珍しい。すごい子ね。そうでしょう、そうでしょう。バン様の素晴らしさはいくらでも語ることができます。話せば長くなりますが、バン様は2歳の頃からすでに弁学と剣術に秀でており、弁学では大人に匹敵する豊富な知識を持ち、剣術においては少年兵を常に圧倒して、領民の間では信用などと
I was always wondering, the Japanese bathing culture is like, you know, even at home normally you shower to make yourself clean, and then you use the bathtub to soak and relax. And if you take that as meaning they more or less transfer the public bath into a private one. Because in public baths, it makes sense. You clean yourself with a shower and then you join the bathtub. Because everyone has to use them. So you want to everyone should be clean so you don't dirty the water. That is what the shower is for. It makes sense that the bathroom is similarly equipped. That the idea is you make yourself clean and the bathtub is to soak and relax in. Just, I was always wondering because where I'm living in, we have these Western bathrooms where it's like, okay, you have a bathtub. You don't have a shower, and the room is also not really more or less shower room. I believe I had one of those whenever I was in France. On holiday. I believe they had a bathroom similar to that, where the whole wall was, ceramic or whatever, so water could flow down, and they had a part where the water could then go into the pipe system on the ground. Maybe it's just where I'm living in that we have that. Maybe in Europe as well, we had the similar system to Japan where we just put a public bath into our home. But modern ones don't do that. Most likely because it's pretty hard to clean, or it takes a lot of time to clean. However, if you build the bath expecting that, you can just have a smaller room for that. Essentially, the shower cabins are similar to that.
どうされました？
カムシン、筋肉ついたね。
そうでしょうか。D 様に比べたら細くて。
あの人と比較したらみんなそうだよ。いいな。
I was somewhat assuming that Kamzin is also a girl, but good to see that we have some younger male companions as well.
なあ、筋肉。まあ、カムシンは剣術の訓練すごく頑張ってるからな。
はい。バン様をお守りするためにも D 様のようになれるよう頑張ります。
D みたいになるの？それだけはやめてね。
呼びましたかな？
Why are you here with swords? Is that a euphemism? Is that like, oh, we have to hide, but look at them swords. They could do some sword fighting. Why is your sword so big? You know what? Don't mind. Don't mind.
一プロを浴びさせていただきます。
僕はそろそろ出ようかな。
まあまあ、時を使わずに裸の付き合いで親睦を深めましょう。みんなで入ると体も心も温まりますな。
Right, I forgot he's always training.
なんだかんだあったけどお風呂気持ちよかったな。これでようやく部屋で寝られる。ふかふかだ。世は満足である。おやすみなさい。
Okay.
バン様、騎士団の皆さんのおかげで立派な堀ができましたね。
そうなんだけど。
Okay. So now we need to fill it with water, I guess? I mean, not necessarily.
やっぱり水を張って水堀にした方が防衛に適してるかな。それにお風呂とか飲み水にも使えるし。
So what are we going to do? We are going to get a river. And because there's no river here, not that we see one, we have to make not irrigation. We have to make a canal somewhere. get water here.
よし、水源を確保し。
I do wonder. You could potentially get, the channel into your city, right? Because at the moment you would probably have it outside, but then whenever you get siege, you don't have any connection to water. So it's probably better to get like a connection underground, so you can have like a well or whatever to get fresh water, even if sieged.
しよう。
Let's see.
早速。近くの川から水の引き込み工事を開始し。
Okay. I was wondering, they are now searching for water, even though water is in the background, but no. This is what they
川から
found.
水の引き込み工事を開始した。エスパーダが数十メートルを一気に掘削して。
Now, this is the point. It makes sense that he is able to do that. He's old. He was part of the noble family. He probably used his ability a lot. It makes sense that he is as good as he is in this.
ディやカムシンたちが手作業で掘り進める。僕はその後ろからついていき、地面や壁を強化しているんだけど。何が楽しくて笑ってるんだろう。
もう40だというのに元気な男です。
川と村との距離を考えるとかなりの大仕事ですね。
まあ水がないと生きていけないし大変だけど、こうやってみんなで目標に向かって協力するのも楽しいかな。それに生活環境が整って暮らしが良くなれば商人とかも来やすくなるし、これはこの先ここで気楽に暮らしていくために必要なことなのだ。
Sure, laid back life in the future, whatever. However, here again we have the butler using his magic to make the start. We have the knights who then try, further the channel. Cool. And he is just using his magic to give the finishing touches. Make it so that the water doesn't seep too much into the ground, yada yada yada. This is a lot better. Also, it seems like it's not done in a day. It will take a bit of time. At least it's not instantly. We have a little bit of progression.
まあ1週間はかかるだろうから。
See? Take us a week. I don't want more than this. Just, hey, it takes a bit of time. We are not OP. Stuff takes a while.
ぼちぼちやっていこう。
We don't solve every problem in like a minute. Some problems take a bit. I mean, you now get some water. Okay. And additionally, now you can try to look at other problems. For the food problem, maybe you look around for a solution there.
村が見えてきました。マジか。
バカみたいなペースだ。
はい、今日はここまで。
は？どうしてです？この調子で続ければあと数時間で村に。
Why are we doing this? It would have been fine. It did not even need to be a week. It could have been like 5 days, 4 days. Sure, we are very fast. We are very strong. Cool. A day.
たどり着きますぞ。
いやいや見たまえ、カムシンたちを。
久しぶりに良い鍛錬方法を見つけたと思ったが、確かに無理はしない方がいいか。
嘘でしょ。まだ余力があるのか。
ふう。
この人もか。はあ、恐ろしい。
All in a day, really. Just use a little bit of time, make it more reasonable, more interesting. Now we will see how they use the water. I feel like they are just going to dump it into the moat, which this is not going to be fresh water. Because, you still have like trash you need to get rid of. We will see. We will see.
皆様の多大なる貢献によりついに水引き込み工事の完了を迎えました。この1日半の間大変な苦労があったことと思います。本当にありがとうございました。では開通。
どんどんな
Day and a half.
どんどん流れてく。
素晴らしい。すっげえ。水だぞ。
おお、水だ。本当に川から水が。
ああ、満水になったね。
As I assumed, it is just being put into the moat, which is like, this is not fresh water. It's going to stand here for like a week. Then you have 1 week old standing water. Now you would need, on the other side maybe, a way to, get this water back into the river. Then you have somewhat of fresh water, but even then, it would make more sense to have, like, again, maybe the river going into the city, underground, whatever, or go around the city, go back into the big river or the channel, and have a gate to fill the moat. Because this water is just going to stand here.
けど雨で増水したら氾濫しそうだな。村の裏側に湖でも作ろうか。
いい案だと思います。湖を貯水池として使えば干ばつの際は助かるでしょう。
よし、それで行こ
う。なんということでしょう。水道がなかった村に貯水池となる湖まで。
Yeah, can you believe it? It was done in a
これで
day.
もう生
You know the saying, Rome wasn't built in a day? There's a reason. There's a reason.
活用水の心配はありません。
おかげさまで長い時間をかけて川まで水を汲みに行かずとも良くなりました。
You just have to hope that you never get, sieged. So you cannot really access the water anymore.
ありがとうございます。
いえいえ、礼には及びません。村に水が行き渡ってよかった。これで村人のみんなにももっと気楽に暮らしてもらえそうだ。
I don't really know how safe lake water is. Because they're like, oh, it's like a reservoir and we can use this. I mean, in general, I believe all this water is more or less unsafe. That is why I believe that was one of the reasons why beer and meat was so prevalent in the Middle Ages. Because through, the fermentation and stuff, the alcohol, the water, in quotation, is a lot more safer to drink than raw from the river or lake. Again, river is something else because the water is moving, so you have somewhat fresh water. But the lake, I don't believe counts as much as safe-ish drinking water, but not sure. Who? For a moment I was like, she looks like a knight. But her head makes me... It looks more like a bishop? Like a holy person? Maybe like a holy knight because it looks like she has plate mail on her chest. Where are those coming from? Here's some Matty stuff there. Look. At the bottom. And then boom! Hello. Hello there.
アルテジョ目が覚めてしまったか。
すみません、起こしてしまって。
大丈夫か。アルテジョの髪はサラサラしていて気持ちいいから、もう少し撫でておこうか。
So we have seen the girl in the opening, so we always need a love interest, even though we have a mate.
パナメラ様はかっこいいです。
Yeah, I do agree, Panamera.
かっこいい。これでも女神のように美しいと自負しているのだがな。
目が回ります。
結婚前の淑女にかっこいいと言った罰だ。
Unwed lady dashing. Why do I feel like she's going to get together with the knight captain?
そんな。
さあ、辺境の村までまだまだかかる。
So why are they going there? Again, it feels like she's like a bishop. What is that metal part that they show every time? It doesn't look like she has any.
辺境の村までまだまだかかるぞ。
Yeah, again, I'm assuming they are from some kind of church. Again, apart from, I mean, she did say that she is as beautiful as a goddess. I pride myself on being as beautiful as a goddess. So they may be from the church. They may be like trying to convert the village.
さあ、辺境の村までまだまだかかるぞ。
Why, I don't know. We will see. Interesting that they don't seem to have any guards accompanying them.
これで防壁は大方完成かな。
なんということでしょう。
Yes, sadly I can.
土の壁だった防壁がさらに強固に。
土の壁と石を接合してコンクリートみたいに強くしてみた。
こんだ
Down into the earth wall to make it strong like concrete. I don't believe that is how it works.
こんだけ丈夫そうな防壁なら盗賊が来ても安心ですぜ。
You know, the biggest problem is not that bandits are going to attack and, you know, destroy your wall. It's mostly they attack and they just siege you. Because sure, you have some food inside, but how much water do you have? You have a moat that you cannot access because you are getting attacked. That naturally means you have to have enough people to siege a castle or a village. But generally, that is how you just, you know, how you win a castle battle in most cases. It's not as often that you just breach the wall. You do need some heavy machinery, which means that you need a huge army to do that. And if you already have like a massive army, there's a good chance they just surrender instead of just trying to live out weeks on weeks of sieging and heavy machinery being fired on you.
ですぜ。
でももっと安心できるようにしようかな。簡易的なバリスタを作って
Why is the metal? Where's the metal coming from?
みたよ。
簡易的って。
Okay, so this is the part I did not even consider. He's like, oh, I needed some stone, and if I get the stone, I may be able to build other types of housing. However, he was able to make a normal iron sword out of a stick. A small one, but nonetheless. Now, with the other wood, he was making like nanofiber out of the wood fibers somehow. Which is like, okay. Here he's able to make metal out of something. They probably don't have metal, at least not in this amount. And he was able to make ballistas with an iron shield or metal shield. So where do you get the metal from?
すごく立派じゃねえですか。
ありがとう。全面に盾を
Is this whole thing out? No, you can't make it fully metal.
つけたから敵の攻撃を防ぎつつ矢を飛ばして攻撃できるよ。
バン様の生産系魔術はいろんなものを作れるのですね。
I was hoping for like a nice city builder. You know, ballista, sure, I assumed we would have some, but maybe 1 or 2 scorpions. Not like a million out of metal that we somehow have access to. Again, if he was able to transmutate, which I assumed at the beginning, he could have made the houses out of stone, if need be. But he decided to not do that because he didn't have Stein, even though he can transmutate stuff, which we see a second time here. And again, we are going from 0 to 100. We went from, hey, we have a palisade, to we make a moat, we fill it with water, we then have a stone wall. Okay, we had like a stone or clay wall through magic. We upgraded to a stone wall, a massive stone wall, and now we have acquired 1 billion ballista. You could probably sell all of these ballista or scorpion or whatever they are named, and you would make enough money to have a prosperous city already.
村の規模は小さいけど見た目は城塞
Yeah, that's fucking insane. You don't even have enough people to man all of these. You don't have enough people to defend this huge area. This is one of the parts that I found very weird at the beginning, because in the opening we see this village in a similar shot, and the walls are fucking huge. Well, you know, normally you don't have such a huge wall because it makes no sense. You don't need that. You only have a couple buildings in the middle. Having a huge wall, it takes forever to get to the edge of the wall to defend. You need to maintain the whole wall, not, you know, if you make a wall that only encompasses all the housing, it would be maybe 1/4 of that, of this length. Easier to maintain, easier to get to. Naturally, you need less materials to build. You do not have as much expansion room, which is normal. That is why some cities, they have like multiple walls, or, you slowly but surely remove a wall, meanwhile building a new one. Or you just have people living outside the city, outside the wall. The farms outside the wall, cattle outside the wall. Because, hey, guess what? Walls are expensive. Lots of maintenance, lots of materials. You need enough soldiers to man the whole wall. You need enough people to be on watch out. The bigger the wall, the more people you need to, check the surroundings. You need to clear the surroundings so that the walls are more effective. There's a lot of work that goes on, and it's like, okay, I'm not going to waste, I don't know, the football place of land for your cattle or your farm if I can have more people living there and you can have your stuff outside the city.
年っぽくなったかな。
これはもはや村ではありません。
小さい要塞ですな。盗賊ごとき。
This fortress design is garbage. It's so bad. So you see stairs at the two gates. Understandable. You see stairs at the edges or the corners, but not on the long edges. Where on the right and left, where there's no gate, there's no stairs. So if you need to defend there for some reason, you need to go to one of the corners and then run into the middle. Again, doesn't really make much sense. It feels like, oh, we need to have a big fort. Here you go. Not even checking, researching if that makes sense at all. Especially if you can make a fort, why are you making one that is a square? One of the least effective fort designs. I mean, there's a reason why star forts are pretty big, They're easier to defend, they have better coverage, they have less dead spots, or not dead spots, but blind spots you can't defend. Because here you have the problem if someone is at the wall, especially in the middle, on one of the sides without a gate, you have a problem hitting them without overextending over the wall. Normally, you would have the watchtower on the corners. They, normally they are a little bit outside the wall, so you can attack people at the wall. But you don't even have that here, effectively. And you don't have them in the middle. That is why a star design works a lot better, because you have a lot more angles to defend blind spots.
これはもはや村ではありません。
小さい要塞ですな。盗賊ごときではどうあがいても攻略できますまい。
They could just climb over. It's not like, one of the big ways to get into a fortress is you use ladders and you just climb over. And because this is a massive wall without any stairs, again, the sides without the gate, you just have like a bandit elite, 30, 60 people, run up with a couple ladders, you climb up, and bam, you're inside. Now you have the little ballistas or scorpions, whatever. On your side, you can use them, or you can just attack all the people. The wall is more or less useless. Now, naturally, that means you has to be a sneak attack. That is why you have watchtowers. Where I'm living, I do have like I don't know, it's not a star fort, I believe, but I do have a fort which you can just visit, and one, a little bit further away, there's like a tower that is specifically made for the fort. The tower would then, it would be pretty high. They would more or less scout for enemy movement, and if enemy movement was, seen, people had enough time to go into the fort and be protected. That is, again, why you need watchtowers, or you need a better fort design. If you have everyone inside the fort.
もしバン様のこのお力にジャルパ様が気づいてくださっていたら、公爵家はバン様を当主、もしくは補佐として大きく発展したもの。
そのようなことを言って。
I mean, that would be if he was a good ruler, which he was not.
ではなりません。ご当主は戦える力を最も重要視しただけのこと。
しかしエスパーダ殿、これを見ればわかるだろう。バン様のお力は十分に戦える力ではないか。むしろ誰よりも強大な力とさえ言える。
バン様のお力は守る力です。他国を攻めるには向かないでしょう。
バカな。
That is the most important part, though. Defending your land and doing the best for your citizenship are the most important part. Conquering land is nice and all, but essentially doesn't really provide you much, because then you have to assuage or whatever. You need to pacify the people you just conquered, slowly integrate them into your country. It's a lot of work, a lot of management, just to get a little bit more tax. There's a lot of stuff you need to do for that. And in this case, he doesn't, as Knight Commander was saying, he would be very good at like a development kind of station. Not necessarily as a leader, but he can do a lot of development stuff. He can help a lot of people.
は向かないでしょう。バカな。戦とは兵と兵がぶつかり合うことだけではありませんぞ。
And potentially, if you showcase that your people are well off and they have all the foods, all the protection, you may end up converting people into your kingdom. I don't know if that was something that happened in the Middle Ages. The biggest problem is that information was not really shared as much. But it could be that you bleed out other cities or villages and they all come to your city. Which I believe was what happened with the Mayans. I'm not sure though. But there was a reason why their city had so many people. Maybe something similar to this one.
まあ境遇を悔やんでも才能を悔やんでも仕方ないさ。自分の持ってるものだけで勝負しないとね。
まさにバン様のおっしゃる通りです。自らの不遇を嘆いても何も変わりません。こんな領地の端に追いやられようとバン様なら盛り返せますぞ。そしてやがてはバン様の領地を。
公爵家と相対する道を進めてどうするつもりですか。
ですがバン様のこのお力があれば。
おいしい。よかったです。材料が少ないからちょっと心配でした。
食
We don't have many ingredients. We have ham, we have eggs, we presumably have rice, because this is normally fried rice inside the egg. Yes. We have fresh vegetables.
材ってあんまりないの？
ええ。
バン様、村の防衛も大事ですが、定期的な収入もどうにかしなくてはなりません。今は1ヶ月に一度。
Very professional.
来るか来ないかの行商人としか外との交流がないと聞きます。
でもとりあえず家や家具とかは僕が何とかできると思うし、食料は村の農作物で十分確保できるよ。
調味料がありません。それにバン様のお好きな甘い焼き菓子などの材料もありません。
なんだって。
産業か。よし、すぐにこの村から売り出すものを作ろう。何でもいい。案を出してくれ。
はい、バン様が作った木のブロックが良いと思います。
却下。僕にしか加工でき。
That is one of those things you need something everyone can work on. Are we going to make soya thingy? Beans? Beans. More or less soy sauce. Are we making soy sauce? It's a typical we make soy sauce. I'm assuming they already have rice in the egg omelette thingy. It may also be rice. And yes, you need an industry. Again, we still have the mountains full of ore. But if you need money, you just need one to produce a bunch of stuff you can sell. And then you can get the ingredients for the time being. And the village, the merchants will come. if you have a thriving city with something to sell, the merchants will come. You don't need to persuade them, you don't need to convince them. They are going to go where the money is. And if you have something that makes money, they are more than willing to visit you.
魔獣を飼って素材を
魔獣を狩れるのはオルトさんたちしかいない。
Again, I'm assuming it's soy sauce.
この村の特色を生かしたものとなると難しそうですな。
何かいい手を考えないと。
バン様は愛されてますね。二人に試し切りで武器の性能を確かめるように言っても、バン様にもらった大切なものだから汚しもらった大切なものだから
Okay.
汚したくないって
So
言
you
うんで
made
さ。
weapons?
家宝です。
大事にしてくれるのは嬉しいけど、どの程度使えるか知っとかないといざって時に自分の身を守れないよ。
So, because he made these weapons, again, transmutation, but he can't make stone, I'm assuming these are OP as well.
しかし、
これなら大丈夫ですぜ。オークナイトの盾。肩と背中の皮を使った頑丈で柔軟性もある優れものです。
It's going to be destroyed instantly.
カムシン。
わかりました。
あははは傷つけたくないのはわかりますが、そんな軽くじゃ。あえ新調したばかりなのに。
木の武器がこれほどの威力とは。
How is it wooden? It's clearly metal.
ちょっと待ってて。
おお、治った。
何騒いでるんだよ。あ、バン様、ちょうどよかった。鉱石を買い取ってくれません。
So they went and got these ores. They said there were a bunch of dangerous monsters.
なんかね。この奥の森はウルフスブルク山脈の麓のせいか手強い魔獣が多いです。そのおかげですかね。山まで行かずとも珍しい鉱石が取れます。
Which is nice and would be potentially something the village can do. However, the village cannot really fight off these monsters, right?
こっちは鉄鉱石、さらに銅や銀、金も少し取れました。あとはほら、ミスリル鉱も。
This is typical, oh yeah, one of the, best materials to use to make stuff. We found it, yay, we make stuff out of it.
ミスリル？それはすごい！森で取れるなんて。でもどうしてこれまで採掘されなかったんだろう。
Strong monster still?
推測ですが、これまでは距離が離れていて利便性もないことから、騎士団による探索くらいしか行われてないんじゃないですかね。
なるほど。麓でそれならウルフスブルク山脈には相当な資源。
It wouldn't really make sense if you have an ore mine like this in your territory. You would try to get to it. I mean, this may be the reason why the village is here in the first place, that it was used to try and mine this area. Because it has mithril probably rare, they probably don't have unlimited mithril around. Maybe it doesn't really, it's not, they don't need to risk it for like some iron ore and copper, but gold and mithril I feel like would warrant some risk in trying to mine that.
が埋まってそうだね。
ええ、そうかもしれません。
鉄鉱石を使ってもいいかな。
構いませんよ。
He still needs to make a necklace for Will? I believe was her name.
もう鉄ができたんですかい？
溶かして不純物を取ってないから純度はわからないけどね。
バン様、試しにそれで足の剣を作ってくれません？
いいよ。盾も申し訳なかったしね。
本当ですかい？なら短剣と長剣を1本ずつお願いします。
あいつあんなに剣が好きだったか。
初めての鉄の武器だ。刀身は刀より厚く、けど刃の部分は極限まで鋭く、金属の密度が大事な気がする。
You made a wooden sword that looks like an iron sword, so
ぎゅっと集めて凝縮させよう。よし、記念すべき最初のお客だからね。装飾に凝ってみたよ。
it looks so tiny.
じゃあ次は長剣を。
おい見せろ。触らないでくださいよ。少しぐらいいいだろう。
みんな静かにしておくれ。僕は今オシャンティーなロングソードを作っておるのだ。できた。なかなかかっこいいな。
Why are you not making yourself a weapon first?
バン様、俺にも剣を。
あの長剣が欲しい。俺は短剣だ。
おや、意外に本職も欲しがる出来栄え。鉱石を持ってきてもらったし、冒険者のみんなには武器をサービスするよ。使ってみないと詳しいことは言えませんが。
Everyone was like, "Oh, make one for me." They never tested any of the weapons, so why? It's understandable that he is interested in it because he saw the other weapon that was only made out of wood. I can also understand maybe the Knight Commander being like, I also want you to make me something. For him, it probably doesn't matter how good the sword is because he just brute forces everything. But for the rest, it doesn't really make much sense. And again, he needs to make an accessory for Mate's son.
かなり高く売れると思います。あ、そうなの？ってことはあれで作ったら。
ミスリルですか。珍しい。このような金属鉱石が山ではなく森で採掘されるというのはあまり聞きません。例外としてダンジョンの近くならばそういったこともあるでしょう。
ダンジョンがあるのか。
わかりやすいんぜ。あまり調査されてない場所ですし。
バン様、もしダンジョンが発見されたら風向きが大きく変わります。この村には大量の人と物が行き来するようになるでしょう。
新しいダンジョンか。本当に見つかれば村の重要度は格段に上昇するよね。
ダンジョンは各国の国王と呼ばれる宝玉などが見つかる資源の宝庫です。通常新たなダンジョンの報告を受けたギルドは近くの町や村に支部を作る決まりがあります。
今の状況でそんな報告をしてもギルドの人たちを村に受け入れる余裕はないよね。
その通りです。多くの冒険者や行商人、騎士団なども来るでしょうが、この村の設備、施設、食料全てが不足しております。
あとはダンジョンの利益目当てで隣国が攻めてきたりね。いや、隣のフェルディナット伯爵領の方が可能性は高いか。となると、
じゃあダンジョンはあえて探さないようにしようってことか。
でもダンジョンがあると分かればすぐに騎士団を派遣してもらえるんじゃないですか。
僕はフェルティオ家にとって厄介者だから。
Was a chivalric order be dispatched? So I'm assuming that the girl and the nice lady are from the chivalric order?
派遣してもらえるんじゃないですか。
僕はフェルティオ家にとって厄介者だから。
They are definitely a huge part why people are not going to interfere here, right?
追い出した先が有益と分かればまた別の場所に飛ばされちゃうかな。
ではバン様がこの村を大きくしたという実績を作ってからダンジョンを発見する必要がありますね。それならフェルティオ家も手を出しにくいでしょうし。
だったらダンジョンがありそうな範囲を避けて資源回収するか。
わかった。
ダンジョンを見つけて報告した方が メリットは大きいのに。みんなありがとう。
I mean, at this point, it's just risk management. It feels like, from everything they have seen, it is better to be on Van's good side. Have him as a lord, as some connection, than some short-term profit.
住居は大丈夫そうだし、劇的大改造はとりあえず終了かな。
バン様、本当に魔力が尽きないのですね。
でもちゃんと疲れるよ。だから疲れたら終わり。
一日中何か作っていた気がしますが。
大変だ！アーマードリザードが来た！街道の向こうから向かってきてる！みんな早く壁の中へ！
橋を上げて、すぐに門を閉めて。
Did we not have something similar last season? Where they got attacked, they had to retreat.
みんな戦いは怖いと思う。
What are you afraid of? It's fucking lizards. What are they going to do? Look at the wall?
怪我だってするかもしれない。
Why?
だけどこれはこの村の全員の命をかけた大事な戦いだ。みんなのために僕は戦う。だけど僕だけの力じゃみんなを守れない。だから力を貸してほしい。僕たちみんなでこの村を守ろう。
What is going on? Fuck me. So, after 3 episodes, straight up, it's typically isekai stuff. It's not good. It's not necessarily bad. It just is the standard affair. We have an OP character who luckily is only OP in his own area until this point. Who knows later? We have a huge city for some, or a huge wall for no apparent reason. We made a moat and a lake for fresh water somehow, sure. We got attacked by a bunch of lizards. And we are totally scared and we have to fight and we could get injured. Even though we have a fucking wall that the lizard can't get through. We have scorpions or ballistas, whatever, on top we can use to fight all these lizards. Now, granted, we have a little problem because this is a square wall. When they are at the wall itself, you can't attack them with these instruments because they cannot reach that angle. So, you know, should have thought about that before, I guess. But even though there's nothing that makes me believe that the lizards are going to be able to climb the wall or get through the wall, which means you are safe. You can just wait for them to tire out and then kill them. You could even get really, really long wooden poles with a pointy bit at the end and just poke them as well. I'm assuming their back is armored, but still, you can do that. Bows are less reliable for the common folk, but hand crossbows, they could use those. And you could just make new ammo or new crossbows instead of rearming. A lot of things you can do. We are not even getting into the question why the castle is even getting attacked by lizards. What do they want? Do they want to gnaw on the wall? I had my hopes for the show. I was like, maybe we get a little bit of lower building, we get, you know, more in depth of the construction of like a village. But it seems like it's the typical isekai stuff, which I am not a fan of.